against a police state, against racist intersectionality, against political correctness, against mob rule, against the racist socialist left, against the victimhood liars. The idiots have been in charge way too long. And that's why you're here. For the podcast you need. All for liberty all the time. Welcome to Liberty Bites Back. With your host, Brandon Emo.
Welcome to the 13th episode of Liberty Bites Back, the podcast all for liberty, all the time. In this episode, I will be going over the election of 2020, COVID-1984, and the suicides that surround the fake-demic. The corporate prostitutes, as they gaslight their viewers, lie to their viewers, and change the subject to nonsense for their viewers. They controlled the narrative and got the result they wanted. That's why they instantly called it for Joe Biden. While we are now seeing the Electoral College Court play by Donald Trump coming into the final bell, that could change it all. It's something to see this one survey that was done about Hunter Biden's scandal, where it was exposed he's a middleman to help get Chinese and Ukrainian money to his father, as Joe Biden acts similar to a foreign national spy. If it would have been exposed of Joe Biden's money being made, along with Hunter Biden getting all his credit for every job he had because he was a Biden, and ultimately it was decided to him because of his father. We now see a glimpse of the horrors of the politicians in our countries as they push their allowed family into, and are pushing their family members into more wealth than all of us combined, as they are allowed to smoke crack and do drugs galore, get prostitutes, and get weird with random people. As many normal people are arrested daily for these actions of doing the same, they are creating a new class of people in the nation, an ultra-elite, rich class of politicians' family members. The fact the mainstream media, the corporate press, the legacy media, that needs to fail because they just lie to all their people and hide the news that all the people need to know. From the Washington Examiner, their article reads, Trump would have got 311 Electoral College votes if media weren't biased. Survey. The liberal media's efforts to hide Joe Biden's related scandals from the voters, bury good news about the Donald Trump administration cost the president the election, according to two new voting surveys. Had voters known about the troubling issues swirling around the Democrats and some of the successes of the Trump White House, including the Middle East peace deals, job growth, and energy independence, enough people would have turned away from Biden to give Trump 311 electoral votes, more than enough to win, so the polls shared with secrets. Ripping the media, Brent Bozell, founder of the Media Research Center, said, had they done their jobs, Donald Trump would have won the election. Bozell added, this is not a happenstance. This is not coincidence. What's more, the media had a partner in Twitter, which Bozell said censored Trump, his campaign, or family members 262 times during the end of his campaign. Biden's team was never censored. In one survey for MRC by McLowen and Associates, enough of Biden's voters would have switched their selection had they known about his son Hunter's money scandal to give Trump a victory. In that poll, 4.6% of Biden's voters said they would not have selected him if they would have been aware of his son's China money affair. In the second, done by the polling company MRC, 17% of voters would have shifted away from Biden had they known about Biden's scandals and Trump's achievements. A survey of voters in the key battle states of Arizona, Georgia, Michigan, Nevada, North Carolina, Pennsylvania, and Wisconsin found enough Biden voters switching to give Trump the win in each state. The survey did not assume that those voters leaving Biden would shift to Trump, showing how close those races were. Bozell's group has been critical of the media during the Trump years and during the election. He said that the press hid or muted reports about sexual assault allegations against Biden. the Hunter Biden affair, the scorecard showing that running mate Senator Kamala Harris is the Senate's most liberal member. The polling company survey also found that up to half of Biden supporters didn't know about key Trump achievements, including recent economic growth in the program to speed coronavirus vaccines called Operation Warp Speed. He would have won 311 electoral votes. To put it another way and look at the final slide, and this is the number that is stunning. 17% of Biden voters would not have voted for Joe Biden had they been aware of at least one of those 8 stories. So just think about that for a second. Donald Trump would have won every single contested race in America. Of the 6 contested races, he would have won every single one, and you would have had at least 311 electoral votes, said Bozell. He urged Republicans and conservatives to shift away from mass media and take their stories to social media. We have to give up on the national news media, he said in a call with conservative leaders. But he added that social media may not be as friendly, citing efforts by Facebook and Twitter to limit the voices of conservatives. If our legacy media would not be the hiders of truth, the liars to the people, and the gaslighting of the scandals that are to be exposed, Donald Trump would have already won this election. A voting machine company that is tied to our election in 2020 has seen one of their directors leave the business to join Joe Biden's transition team. While many fact-check sites are saying that it's fake news because they say people are saying that he's the director of Dominion, it's not fake at all. But the company in question is Smartmatic. Smartmatic board of director has been appointed by Joe Biden to be in his transition team. The board member in question is Peter Neffinger. Sidney Powell, an attorney representing the voters in the election of 2020, states he attempts to discount ballots that gave Biden his victory, explained Neffinger's involvement in the potential suit targeting ballot scanning and tabulation machines during an interview Sunday. He told Fox News' Mariana Bartimalo. Peter Neffinger is a former Coast Guard commander who served as an administrator of the Transportation Security Administration from July 2015 to January 20th, 2017. So let's hear that again. He is part of Smartmatic, and Joe Biden is putting someone from the TSA, the most gropey little flippin' American industry for, I guess you would call that a Homeland Security section of our security. They put a TSA agent guy in our flippin' transitional team for our new president, even though it's not our president yet. Peter Neffinger is currently chairman of the board of directors of Smartmatic, a multinational company that specializes in building and implementing electronic voting systems. Last week, Neffinger was named a member of Joe Biden's transitional team. While truly a transitional team does not usually exist until it is declared so, a president-elect through the constitutional process, our nation is failing to ignore anything about the Constitution at the moment. This is a scandal, and this is not getting much time on air. And it's sad that the blatant and obvious ties to Joe Biden has with election voting machine companies and how he's willing to hire their directors like they might just owe him a favor. While spending online is surging 21% this year, Black Friday has seen a steep fall of box stores sales, falling around 52.1% compared with last year. As they all see a drop in box stores, the online market sees a rise in 21%. It's clear the main corporate entities are the ones rising due to the COVID-19 scare-induced market at the moment because of our governmental interference. CNBC reports. We knew Black Friday traffic was going to be down. We just didn't know how much it was going to be down, said Brian Feld, a senior director of global retail consulting at Sensormatic Solutions. Shoppers are spreading out their shopping throughout the holiday season because of concerns in social distancing and the pandemic. The COVID-19 pandemic has pushed a record number of customers to shop online instead, as retailers place many of their top holiday door-buster deals online and encourage shoppers to buy on the web and then pick up purchases curbside. The Center of Disease and Control, the prevention, also recommends that Americans shop online the day after Thanksgiving. Many malls looked bleak. The parking lots were more empty than full across much of the country during the early hours of the morning Friday. Some reported traffic picking up later in the day, especially at outlet and open-air shopping centers. At some, consumers felt more comfortable heading out. The warmer weather that blanketed much of the country also helped. Well, the box stores and malls are seeing a real, they're seeing a hit. But the real hit is at the malls and pop stores that are seeing the death blow to their wallets and their money and their survival. They always say the COVID-19 will kill grandma and grandpa. It's clear that the government intervention and fear porn is causing the death and the doom to small businesses over any other sector. NBC News reports on Tennyson Street in Denver, mom and pop stores are dying amid COVID-19. Denver. When COVID-19 hit the U.S. in March, revenue at Alyssa Mani's yoga studio fell 60% to 70%. And it wasn't just her. Nearly every business on Tennyson Street in a gentrifying neighborhood about 15 minutes from downtown neighborhood was hit hard by the pandemic. First to go was Baju's, a little curry shop, a popular dining spot featuring dishes that Baju Thomas grew up with in South India, like samosa chaat, dasas, rotos. He moved to the U.S. in 1980 and settled in North Denver. February has been his best month since he's opened the restaurant in 2016, but by March he was done. We lost 80,000 in bookings that first week, Thomas said recently. We had weddings and events booked into March, April, May. We did about 40,000 catering and events over the course of a year, 1,500 meals a day out of the kitchen. There's no coming back from that. Thomas's experience is echoed by small businesses owners across the country who have fallen on hard times since the start of the pandemic, which has killed over 260,000 people in the United States and strangled their economy. At least 100,000 small businesses nationwide have closed permanently. You know what that means? That means there are probably over 1 million people that lost their jobs due to these small businesses nationwide being closed permanently down. According to the Yelp analysis released in September, many others are barely hanging on. Small businesses make up 44% of the U.S. economic activity, according to a 2019 report from the Small Business Administration. Restaurants, which before the pandemic employed 15 million people, have been especially hit hard. The wreckage is evident in empty storefronts, takeout-only signs, and GoFundMe pitches to help merchants stay afloat. No one was prepared for the reality of shutting down an entire economy, said Mani, owner of the Amana Alhana Yoga and Bar, the vice president of the local Merchants Association. Business owners had to decide, do you want to take on the debt and play a long game or get out? Mani chose the former, taking on $200,000 in debt and turning her popular studio into a membership-only operation. In the early 20th century, streetcars ran across 38th and 44th Avenues, and riders hopped off of Tennyson to shop and go to the movies. Over the decades, the bowling alley became a grocery store, the movie theater a music shop, and the post office a furniture store. Other small businesses moved in, like a barber shop, a print shop, and a corner bar. The Tennyson Street commercial corridor, with its 8 blocks of restaurants, breweries, and independent bookstore. The Oriental Theater, a venue for live music performances and beating the heart of the community. Today, Tennyson is rapidly gentrifying, and in a nod of transformation, the high-end athletic wear purveyor Lululemon recently opened a seasonal pop-up. Core Power Yoga moved in, and the boutique hotel is coming in January. But some residents are critical of the changes, which include apartment buildings without ground floor retail to promote foot traffic, saying the trendiness is out of the character with the neighborhood where century-old bungalows sit beside contemporary apartments. Alongside Tennyson, a vibrant painting of buffalo hangs in the art gallery windows, and the scent of citrus candles greets pedestrians outside a nearby shop. The familiar notes of "it's beginning to look a lot like Christmas" rise out of the antique stores, and passerbys know that the restaurants are serving just by breathing. Baking, toast, red sauce, pepperoni. Over the spring and summer, restaurants that survived the initial shell shock of COVID-19 pivoted to takeout and outdoor dining. Picnic tables moved to parking lots and vacant plots of land. The street had a party-like vibe. 3 houses had been slated for demolition, became pop-up spaces for interactive art experience sponsored by marijuana brand. The Wahana Art House featured a magic circus. The Beach House projected immersive beach scenes, and the Clubhouse was a place for pop-up art and boutique sales. But with the turn of the seasons, businesses shut down again. Fencing surrounding the former art houses. The local 46, a popular watering hole with a tree-covered patio, closed for good on Halloween. Hops and Pies, a pizzeria owned by Drew Watson and his wife, Leah Watson, had a busy summer, but a short video they released in November informed customers that they were moving to takeout and delivery indefinitely. The heated outdoor tent that they have just erected would sit empty, as the state announced that 1 in 41 Coloradians are testing positive for COVID-19. No indoor dining would be allowed, not even in a tent. This has surely been the worst year we've seen by a landslide, said Watson, who has owned the eatery for 10 years. This COVID-1984 is transferring the wealth away from the middle class and the poorest Americans and into the pockets of the extreme wealthy. Where are all you that were about, oh, we're the 99%, you're the 1%, you don't know anything. You are wanting this transfer of money, this transfer of wealth to the ultra rich. You do not care about anyone that is in the 99%. You care about nobody. You want the rich to be richer, or you would be standing up for everyone around you, all the small businesses, all of the people that are starving in the streets, that have no jobs, that have lost their jobs, have lost their businesses. You don't care. You only care about the extremely wealthy, because that's all you're going to allow to survive in this country. Sad news is seen in Japan at the moment, as suicides are now exceeding the deaths of COVID-19. CNN reports in Japan more people died from suicide last month than COVID in all of 2020. And women have been impacted most. Eriko Kabashia has tried to kill herself 4 times. The first time she was 22 years old with a full-time job publishing that didn't pay enough to cover her rent and grocery bills in Tokyo. I was really poor, said Tabayoshi, who spent 3 days unconscious in a hospital after the incident. Now 43, Kabayashi has written books on her mental health struggles and has a steady job at NGO, but the coronavirus is bringing back the stress she used to feel. My salary is cut and I cannot see the light at the end of the tunnel, she said. I constantly feel the sense of crisis, and I might fall back into poverty. Experts have warned that the pandemic could lead to mental health crisis. Mass unemployment, social isolation, and anxiety are taking their toll on people globally. In Japan, global statistics show suicide claim more lives in October than COVID-19 has in the entire year to date. The monthly number of Japanese suicides rose to 2,153 in October. According to Japan's National Police Agency, as of Friday, Japan's total COVID-19 toll was 2,087, the health ministry said. Japan is one of the few major economies to disclose timely suicide data. The most recent national data for the US, for example, is from 2018. The Japanese data could give other countries insights into the impact of the pandemic, measures on mental health, and which groups are most vulnerable. We didn't even have a lockdown, and the impact of COVID is very minimal compared to other countries. But still, we see a big increase in the numbers of suicides, said Michiko Yoduna, an associate professor at Wasasa University in Tokyo and an expert on suicides. That suggests other countries might see similar or even bigger increase in the number of suicides in the future. Right there, they say the experts have warned that the pandemic could lead to mental health crisis. Mass unemployment, social isolation, and anxiety are taking their toll on people globally. Many countries will see the same. More deaths and suicides than COVID-19 as the death rate drops and the lockdowns and the depression and skyrockets into society. Lonely elderly, lonely children, lonely teens, the young adults that are confused on what this means as their future is being broken and unrepairable. The suicide rate is only likely to rise when the government punishes their people and becomes more authoritarian in nature. It's sad to see, sad to say, but these stories could all be around you in your own neighborhood. And please, I warn you, break the law of the COVID-1984. Break the mandates. Save your friends. Save your family. And save your loved ones from ending their own lives. Keep in contact. Keep in company. Ignore the government's wishes for your loved ones to kill themselves. And speaking of suicide, it's clear that this year has not been creating more deaths of grandma and grandpas, as the death rate is the same as all previous years. So the lie that you'd kill grandma and grandpa is exposed as what it is, a big fat lie. No more deaths than any other year, but instead many counts are down for pneumonia, heart disease, and flu-affiliated deaths, replaced and matched the deaths of COVID-19. In Canada, though, one grandmother decided the threat of another COVID-19 lockdown is enough for her to kill herself. Nobody stopped, nobody caused her death, but she chose to take her own life to escape the dystopia of this year. To escape the dystopia of authoritarian governments. The National Review reported, elderly woman euthanized to avoid anguish of lockdown loneliness. An elderly Canadian woman was killed by her doctor because she would rather be dead than go through another COVID lockdown. When it looked like she would have to be confined to her room for 2 weeks, she asked and received a lethal jab due to declining mental health and vitality. From CTV story, Russell, described by her family as exceptionally social and spry, was one such person. Her family says she would choose a medically assisted death after she declined so sharply during the lockdown that she didn't want to go through more isolation this winter. This time, doctors approved her. Russell could not have gone through another lockdown in her care home. She just truly did not believe that she wanted to try another one of those 2-week confinements in her room, her daughter said. But note for her death, she could be surrounded by family and friends. When a 90-year-old Nancy Russell died last month, she was surrounded by family and friends. They clustered around her bed, singing a song, and she has chosen to send her off. As doctor helped her through a medically assisted death, so companionship to be made dead, but not to remain alive. And her family thinks this was a fine option, demonstrating how the social mindset becomes twisted by euthanization consciousness. But we are told killing to end suffering is so compassionate, and lockdowns are measures of good health. Bah! Those with eyes, let them see. Let's just hear this again. The only way she could be around her family and friends, this elderly lady in Canada, was if she decided to kill herself. It is not that she could just live and be around her family. The government has created a circumstance where the only way you get to be around your family is if you decide to kill yourself. What type of retardation is this? What type of ridiculous assertion is to be made where you are only allowed to be around your family when you decide to have a doctor kill you? That makes no sense. Makes no sense at all. And to think of all these family members of hers singing a song as she is dying from a jab. Doctor jabs her and then they sing the last song to send her off. Probably crying, singing, just wishing that the government authoritarianism would not have placed their grandmother, their mom, their loved one into this circumstance. I have eyes, and I see the depression going across this planet, across the lonely elderly people, across the children, across the young adults, as I lose more and more people in my community due to them taking their own life to escape the government-created madness of COVID-1984. I would like to thank all of you for watching the 13th episode. Who wins? Who's always won? The culture clash. The culture war is real. I have talked about it. I even have a playlist explaining the culture war and how racists have infiltrated the ideology of social justice.